Welcome to episode 3. Your pit ain't broken. All right. If you can hear the fire, you can smell the smoke, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. This is Smokin with Gary, where we don't rush meat, lie to ourselves, or trust anyone who says brisket is easy. I'm Gary, and today we're going to talk about something I hear blamed more than weather, politicians, and in-laws combined. We're talking about your pit.
Smokin with Gary, the pitmaster king, teaching you the magic, the barbecue swing, recipes, wisdom, and a smoky good time. Light it up, it's Gary's shine.
Welcome back to Smokin with Gary. Today we're going to be getting into our 3rd episode, believe it or not. This one's called Your Pit Ain't Broken. And basically we're going to be talking about things, how to work your pits and stuff like that, which every pit is different. You know, they all have minds of their own. Every pit I've ever cooked on have had hot spots and, cold spots. And, you knew how much wood you needed to get to your certain temperatures, whatnots. Like I said, today we're just going to get into the different kinds of pits and how they work and everything. But I do appreciate every one of you that watch the show. Please like, share, subscribe, whatever. Get us out there. Let's see if we can't get some collaborations with some other people on the internet that do this stuff. Maybe some Heath Rowells or Malcolm Reed or somebody. But thank you for watching us, and let's get into it. The biggest lie in barbecue. Let's just get this out of the way right now. Your pit ain't broken. It ain't cursed. It ain't defective. And it ain't just one of those smokers. What it is, it's misunderstood. Every time someone tells me they can't cook good barbecue, the sentence usually sounds like this. Gary, my smoker won't hold temp. No, you won't hold patience, and that's not an insult. That's just a part of learning. Every pit has a personality. Here's something nobody tells beginners. Smokers have personalities. Some are calm and steady. Some are twitchy. Some act fine until the wind changes, and then they lose their minds. Cheap pit, expensive pit, offset, pellet, drum, reverse, it doesn't matter. Every single one of them has quirks. Your job ain't to fight that. It's to learn it. Where does it run hot? Where does it cool off? How long does it take to respond when you touch the vents? You don't learn that by staring at it. You will learn that by sitting with it. Now, a lot of the things that I do when I first have a pit, I will start a fire. I will get a loaf of bread. I will throw it onto the pit. That way I can see where my hot spots are and everything as I'm getting to know my pit. I usually figure out how many sticks of wood I need to get to hold temp at 250. Or, if I'm cooking something a little hotter, 325, I know how many logs I need to get started when I'm building my fire. That way when it cools down and starts settling out, you're good to go. You got to learn these pits. There's some pits I've seen people that will take like a little rock and hold it, over where their firebox closes because it lets in just enough air. Man, I've seen people that, open up every vent, throw wood, and then I see them trying to drag wood out. I mean, pits, I'm telling you, if you have the patience with them, no matter what pit it is, if you just keep working with it and learn that pit, it will be your best friend or your worst enemy. Why new pit owners struggle? Here's the mistakes most folks make right out of the gate. They fire up a brand new pit and expect it to behave like it's been your friend for 10 years or more. It won't. You got to break it in. Not just the metal, you. You got to see how it reacts to more air, less air, wind, cold, heat, different wood, different fire sizes. That ain't failure. That's education. Like I said, learning your pit is a huge thing where you can know how much you need to get through everything to even actually get it going and get the fire that you need and the smoke that you need. Now, a lot of people's pits where a lot of people make mistakes, I talked about it in my last episode, using wet wood and stuff like that to cook with. Now, on the other hand, you can wet oak, and put it into your fire when you're done smoking your meat, and shut the lids and the vents, and it will cause a creosote inside your pit. Okay? Now, every time that you cook, you are going to scrape your grates clean. You're going to clean your grates with onions or whatever. We'll get into that later when we get into grill maintenance. But what I'm saying is you're going to clean off all the creosote, but the creosote on the inside keeps your pit from rusting from the inside out. On the outside, you can use high temp black paint or whatever color you want. But with the high temp paint, even on your most insulated fire boxes, sometimes the paint doesn't stick. You can get it powder coated. But one cheap way to make sure that you keep the outside of your pit from rusting is linseed oil. Get your pit hot. Roll some linseed oil all over your pit. Let it cook in. And then you're probably good for about 5-6 months. And then you got to do it again. But it's not like that big of a deal. You just take a little paint roller and some linseed oil and just rub it all outside your pit. That is the best way to keep them from rusting out. A lot of people will go in and they'll think, man, my pit's rusting out. It's time to get going again. We got to clean it up and repaint it. The cheapest way is linseed oil. And what I like about linseed oil, especially on some of these pits that are made that are like the old gas tanks, like the propane tanks, with the linseed oil, it keeps some of the old school look of that propane tank. And man, I think whatever these people are doing is looking great. And I'm not sponsored by them, but hey, these guys that are making these pits, if y'all want to sponsor me, hit me up. Let's talk about it. Airflow is everything. Let me say this plain. Fire doesn't need babysitting. It needs air. If your fire's struggling, 9 times out of 10, you're suffocating it. Air in, smoke out. That's it. When you choke a fire, it smolders. When it smolders, it makes dirty smoke. When it makes dirty smoke, your meat suffers. A happy fire breathes easy. This is going back to what I was talking about, where I've seen people on their fireboxes put a little rock just to get the right amount of airflow in there because they're suffocating their fires. Maybe their vents, it was a homemade pit and didn't build the vents correctly, and you have to get a little more airflow through your firebox or through your pit to get the air needed to build this fire. This is a common mistake. People think just because you paid all this money on this fire, on this pit, and it doesn't matter what you do, it's going to hold temp or whatever. Guys, you have to take the time to learn your pit. It doesn't matter if you spent $10 or $10 million on a pit. It's still going to act the way it wants to act. They are some finicky dudes, but once you learn them, they'll be like that old dog that you had that just wouldn't leave your side. I promise you. But you have to take the time to learn your pits. Stop chasing temperature. This one's important. If you remember nothing else today, remember this. Temperature is a result, not a target. When folks say their pit won't hold 250, what they really mean is they kept messing with it every 5 minutes. You open vents, it spikes. You panic, you close them, it drops. You panic again. Congratulations. You just created chaos in your barbecue pit. Make one adjustment, then wait. Fire takes time to respond. It isn't instant coffee. I see this a lot, especially with people that don't really understand how the airflow needs to work or anything. They jump on these expensive pits and they start getting after it and doing what they're doing. And then they're like, man, why I burned through a quart of wood and I can't get it to 250. But they don't let it sit there and learn the pit. They don't know how this works. That's why this is so imperative that you learn the pit that you're working with. It does not matter what kind of pit it is. It will do what it's designed to do if you know how to do it. Cheap pits can cook great food. Here's another truth people don't like. You don't need a $10,000 pit to cook good barbecue. You need awareness. I've eaten incredible barbecue off rusted old smokers that leak smoke like a sieve. Why? Because the person running it knew it. They knew where to place the meat. They knew how much fire it liked. They knew when to leave it alone. Money can buy you convenience, but skill will buy your labor. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It doesn't matter how old your pit is, how new, how painted or whatever it is. If you don't know that pit, it doesn't matter how much you spend on it. You're not going to be able to cook good food. I will say, my very first cook-off I ever did, there was an old man sitting next to a Weber pit. The whole cook-off, he sat out there with a bag of peanuts and a Diet Coke. And he had his little Weber smoking, and beautiful smoke coming out of it. Every once in a while, he'd take a break from his peanuts and his Coke, or his Diet Coke, drop a little piece of wood down in that Weber. He'd sit there, eat a few more peanuts. When the smoke got right, he'd shut the lid. This gentleman that I'm speaking of won grand champion. And there were some pits out there that were unreal. I had pit envy from the minute that I got there, except this guy. And he beat us all. I'm telling you, it is not the pit. It is how you work it. Hot spots ain't the enemy. Every pit has hot spots. It's not a flaw. It's information. Learn where they are. Put thicker cuts there. Rotate when needed. Use the pit instead of fighting it. Once you understand your hot spots, you start cooking with intention instead of guessing. Like I said, the way I find my hot spots, I throw a loaf of bread on there, lay it out, and then as it's cooking, I can pick them up and see which ones are more toasted and which ones are not. That is an easy, quick, cheap method. You could go out and get the little oven thermometers and put them all over your grates to find your hot spot. Or you can just start throwing meat on there. Line it up with meat. See where everything's searing, where it's smoking, where it's better. I will say that most hot spots on offsets are closer to the firebox. On a reverse, you don't really have many hot spots except on the end where the fire comes up into the cooking chamber. Sometimes there's a little heat that comes up through there, but not a whole lot. Pellet smokers. You will have a hot spot on a pellet smoker. Trust me on this one. I'm not lying to you. Your Webers, stuff like that, you can move your little pile of coals wherever you want and make it your hot spot. Santa Maria is the same way. Even your little camping barbecue pits that they have where you can cook burgers and stuff on them. Those even have hot spots. It's just where your fire is on. Where you build your fire, you're going to have the heat. Now, once you start getting into smoke flow and airflow and everything else, that's where you're going to find where your hot spots are on the actual cooking surface of the smoker. Fire size matters. Bigger fire ain't better fire. You want clean burning fire, not a bonfire. Small, controlled, steady. If your pit's swinging wild, your fire's probably too big. A little fire fed often beats a big fire that you're scared of and do not know how to handle. You can't rush the relationship. This part's important. You don't master a pit in one weekend. You build trust over time. You cook ribs. You cook chicken. You mess up a brisket. You learn. Every cook teaches you something if you're paying attention. Barbecue ain't about domination. It's about cooperation. You're cooperating with the elements. You're cooperating with the fire, the smoke, the meat, the rubs. Everything goes into this. If you're truly cooking from the heart, all these things mean something to you. In closing, so before the next episode, do this. Fire up your pit with no meat on it, just fire. Watch how it reacts. Make small changes. Wait. Pay attention. Learn your pit. Because your pit ain't broken. It's just waiting on you to understand it. The fire don't lie. Smoke always tells the truth. And good barbecue, like life, rewards the folks who slow down and pay attention. I'm Gary. We'll do it again next time.